Welcome back to MFO, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I've been talking a lot about fall fishing. I love fishing in the fall, but this morning on my way out of the house, holy cow, it was cold out. And that first mate for us, that first big cold front came through. Whew, it was crispy out there this morning. So what do you do when you're going out on the water and you hit a cold front in fall? I've got some ideas about how you can make it so that that day isn't a complete bust if you find yourself fishing during a fall cold front. We'll be right back, guys. Welcome back to MFO, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys tuning in Monday through Friday. Thanks so much for doing that. If you like this kind of content, if you wouldn't mind, please hit that subscribe button. If you haven't done that already, I would certainly appreciate that. Like I said, we put out the content Monday through Friday, and we appreciate you tuning in. So if you're going out on those fall forays out for fishing while everybody else is thinking about hunting or it's too cold for them, and you get out there, like I said, I love fall fishing. I love the way it looks. It's beautiful out. The leaves are changing color. There's not people on the water. We've talked about all of that. But then you get kind of stuck and there's a cold front going, and it's kind of cold out there. And the fish do respond to that, and they don't respond in a positive way. So what's going to happen during that cold front that happens in the fall is basically two things. One is they are going to get tight to cover. And when I say tight to cover, I mean right up next to it. And they aren't going to be moving a lot. They're just going to be tight to cover. Now, a lot of guys look at that and say, well, that's going to make for tough fishing. I look at it kind of like, some episodes I've talked about in terms of dock fishing and things like that. I look at it like, no, that tells me exactly where those fish are going to be. And I can know where those fish are going to be by using either my electronics or my eyes based on what I see. If a fish is going to be tight to cover, and one of those pieces of cover, for example, is a dock post, well, I can see where that dock post is, and I need to throw right to that. So here's what I'm suggesting on a fall cold front. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to fish like I normally would, top waters, things like that, moving baits. But if I'm not getting bit, pretty quickly, like, oh, I think that cold front is having an impact on the fish, I'm immediately going to start focusing on structure, laydowns, rocks, pier posts, all of those types of things. Vertical cover that fish are going to get up next to. And when I say vertical cover, a log in the water, yeah, they're going to be right up in that. If they get up into branches and things like that, laydowns and things like that, that's where they're going to be. And they're going to be tight, and they're not going to be moving out of that too much. So you're going to need to be throwing baits that you can throw into that kind of cover. A jig. I'd be throwing a jig. And quite honestly, personally, I'd be messing around with a little bit smaller size jig, and you all know this, you've heard this from me a ton. I would be throwing the kind of the chunk style trailers. Not a lot of action, just that waving type of action, like a Rage chunk or, something along those lines, a chunk style trailer on my jig. I'd play around with weights primarily because a slow falling jig isn't necessarily going to entice that reaction strike. So you might want a heavier jig to get it to come into their zone quicker to kind of entice that reaction strike. But in terms of the trailer, I'd still want to have that kind of flapping type trailer. I'd also be looking at reaction baits, like a square bill or a spinner bait, something that I can bump off that cover, get a reaction strike. But again, I want to be able to get real tight to cover. I want to be able to be right where that fish is and then trigger a reaction strike. You know me, I'm also going to always throw a Senko. Might be throwing a Senko wacky style. I might be throwing it Texas, weightless Texas. Let me talk about one other thing before I get more into the Senko thing. You saw me and heard me talk about dock fishing, and I talked about how the pier pilings that go into deeper water, right where that water starts to come up or that bottom contour starts to come up, I feel like those are some of the best pier posts to fish. During a fall cold front, that's 100% what I'm going to be looking for, because those fish that are in deeper water are less affected by the cold front conditions. So yes, they want to be up tight to cover, but they want to be in that deeper water. I would be willing to bet that if I had a pier that had a walkway that was in 3 feet of water, then it dropped down to 12 feet of water, and there were pier posts in that 12 feet of water right as it came up, that's where those fish are going to be, as opposed to being in the pier posts that are in the 3 feet of water. That water up there, that shallower water, is more affected by the cold front, and the fish aren't likely to be uptight to those as much as they would be in that deeper water. Again, doesn't mean that if you have a shallow flat and you've got stumps that those fish aren't going to be up near those stumps. But if you have some kind of vertical cover near the transition from deeper water to shallower water, that's what I would be looking at during a fall cold front. Going back to the Wacky Rig Senko. So let's use that scenario in that I'm throwing at a dock and I've got a post that's in 10 feet of water, deeper water, before it goes up. When I throw that Senko in, I want that Senko to get all the way down to the bottom. And in fact, not only is it going to get to the bottom, but I'm going to let it sit on the bottom. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I'm going to let it sit there. I'm going to just feel for it a little bit. And then when I don't have anything on there yet, now I'm going to give it a little twitch, because if you've got a fish that's sitting on that pier post vertical to that, and then you give that bait a snap after it's been sitting there, what you're doing is you're taking a finesse style bait, a slow falling bait that a bass who's next to the cover might eat as it's falling. He decided not to do that, but you still got one more shot at getting that bass to bite by twitching it and triggering that reaction bite to where he may go after it when you snap that bait off the bottom. So try that. But again, guys, tight to cover baits like jigs, Senkos, reaction strike kind of baits like a spinner bait or a square bill during a fall cold front, and you can make the best out of a chilly situation. It's all in the mindset, guys. Instead of thinking, oh, they're not going to be biting, oh, I know exactly where they're going to be. Let's go target those areas. Good luck with your fall fishing, guys. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you again tomorrow on another episode. Take care, everybody.